Today's video is a little bit different. The Kangen vs Purgatory tournament in a gauntlet format, which means when a fighter wins, they face the next opponent on the opposing team. I'll be considering various factors like potential injuries and stamina issues as they progress, and the original order of the tournament will stay the same. Brought to you by the Mad Lads, Falgul and Marco from the Discord. Join that if you haven't already. Also make sure you hit that subscribe button, it's greatly appreciated. So it begins normally with Gao Lang losing via ring out. However, do take note Carlos was knocked out by Gao Lang in this situation, so neither of them can continue. We have round 2, which is Falcon vs Rito, ends the same way, Falcons win high difficulty, facing the third fighter of Team Kangen, Julius. So Falcon already at this point could barely move or struggling to stay conscious. Julius full health pretty much just destroys him, 0 difficulty, big rips to our ninja boy. Then we have full health Julius vs Toa. Again, pretty much the same outcome as the original. Julius didn't demonstrate anything major against Falcon to give Toa any advantage. I would say at the absolute most, Julius is 70% injured, but most likely a lot less and is more than good enough to keep on going. Then we have Julius vs Yuumi. Yuumi kinda gets clapped. Yes, he has some pretty interesting and speedy moves, maybe can cut up Julius a little bit, but again, Julius's strength, there's no real indication whether Yuumi's a lot faster. If anything, it's easier to argue that Julius is faster. So as a whole, Yuumi kinda gets bodied by semi-injured Julius. But I will say, Julius's stamina is starting to drain quite a bit now after facing Toa and Yuumi. Now he faces Naden. He has these Eye of the Sky foresight to give him a pretty big advantage against Julius, and a decent strength statement from the likes of Gao Lang. However, I think most people agree that Julius is physically stronger than Naden, which would mean his hard redirection wouldn't actually work on Julius too well. I do think this could be fairly close, again due to Julius's stamina and injuries from the previous fights. So I'm actually going to give it to Naden, super high difficulty, maybe like 90% injured, not in the best shape after defeating very injured Julius. Then we'll have full health Misasa against very injured Naden. I'm going to give this to Misa mainly due to the injuries as a whole. Misa, again, very hard to gauge, but he should be stronger than very injured Naden at the very least. I think most people can agree to that. Then we have fairly good condition Misasa vs Lutien. Lutien is a very interesting character. My personal opinion on him is Kano was the best opponent, or the opponent on Team Kangen who was best suited to actually defeat him, as the only fighter who actually understands formulas on Team Kangen. So for this fight, I actually do think Lutien defeats Misasa, mainly due to Misasa's showings not being as good, and we can't really say. I do think this fight will be very close and will require Lutien to use his Guhan to actually defeat Misasa. So let's say Lutien is like 90% injured in this situation as well, going into his next fight against Garuki. Due to him using the Guhan is a very big downside, so Roki should be more than enough to deal with very injured and unstable Lutien. You can even say while Roki actually does his walkout, Lutien can no longer sustain his removal and is kinda destroyed from that regardless, so Roki pretty much just defeats that injured Lutien. Then we have Alan vs Roki. Alan, again, very hard to gauge, didn't really demonstrate anything. He shouldn't be too much trouble for Roki. Maybe if he uses his Guhan 100%, he could push him a little bit, but I think as a whole, if we get kill intent Roki, he should deal with Alan Wu, maybe 50 to 60% difficulty. So let's say Roki's injuries is like on 65% after fighting pretty much destroyed Lutien and Alan. Then he faces Jurata. I personally think Jurata rolls Roki. Even if he isn't injured to the extreme, Jurata should be too much for him at that point. However, will demonstrate his insane judo throws to the likes of Kano, who is the next fighter for Team Kangen. This will allow Kano to be wary of Jurata's throws, probably work out a direct counter for judo as he can adapt to his opponents, make up anti-opponent fighting styles on the spot. Kano should be too much for Jurata, and again, could just use his pre-initiative to absolutely roll him. So Kano defeats Jurata. Even though Jurata won't be injured from Roki, Kano just seeing what he's capable of and getting an understanding of how to counter him will be a huge advantage, and Kano should win relatively easily at that point. Then Kano faces Nicholas Urbana. Nicholas kind of gets clapped, like it's not really too fair, Kano just smokes him. And then Kano faces Liu Dongchen. Liu Dongchen in peak could be a little bit of an issue, has his Far Jin, as we know Kano's Dragon Shot is also Far Jin. But again, Formless, combining his Martial Art and Formless together, even if you say he was pushed quite a bit by Drota and Nicholas back to back, Kano's stamina is off the charts. He's honestly one of the strongest characters in the series, and I do think he defeats Liu Dongchen as well. Then we have Tarashi vs Kano. Let's say Kano's like 60%, 70% injured after facing those three fighters. Tarashi is, in my opinion, probably the biggest clown of the whole tournament. He was pretty much low diff by Akube. What do you think someone like Kano's going to do against him? Pretty simple. Kano's going to destroy him. And at this point, Kano won't be playing around as he's already warmed up. He's being pressured somewhat by the other fighters, so he's just focusing on winning at that point. I don't think he'll do really anything against Kano. So then we have Faye versus Kano. Faye entering his Divine Demon will pressure him quite a bit. You could say maybe the injuries sustained from all the other fights, or just the sheer amount of time he needs to go through to get through all of them, may weaken Kano to such a degree Faye can win. But still, Kano's adaptation and just his evolution, if he wants to put it out, is pretty insane, and I wouldn't be surprised if Kano actually would defeat Faye. But to be fair, I'm just going to say Kano would lose against Faye due to stamina and all the other fights draining him quite a bit. Then we have Kure Ryan against pretty much injured Faye. I don't think many people disagree with this. Ryan wins. And then we have Lolong versus Ryan. Depending on which Ryan you use, you could argue the Ryan who recently destroyed Edward would absolutely roll Lolong, but I don't think that Ryan will come out in this fight. You could use Carla's statement of Oma being more likely to defeat Lolong than someone like Ryan, but still, I don't really agree too much about that. I think Ryan would actually defeat Lolong in this situation. And as a whole, Kangin kinda shits on them. Kano Gito, as soon as he came out, it was pretty much a GG. I could have very well said Kano just rolls all of them from Drota onwards, so defeats Drota, defeats Nicholas, all the way up to Lolong. Kano, in my opinion, could be the strongest character in the verse currently, especially if you consider the fact he's potentially stronger than current Ryan and Prime Kureiro, which should put him over Edward as well, but not going to talk about that in today's video. So yeah, here's my Kangin vs Purgatory Gauntlet video. Pretty much Team Kangin kinda rolls with so many fighters remaining, it's kinda unfair at that point. But yeah, hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to check out other stuff in the description. Shout out to these Mad Lads who support the channel via the Patreon. But yep, that's it guys, peace.